This video is for Module 1, Rounding of Whole Numbers. First, when we're rounding whole numbers, such as 647, when I see a number, I'm going to rewrite it so it's larger, so it's easier for me to work with. The first step that I'm going to look at is that I'm going to make sure I pay attention to what I'm rounding to. And in this case, I'm rounding to the tens place, which will be very important that I know where I'm rounding to. Next, I'm going to underline the digit in the place value that I'm rounding to. So since I'm rounding to the tens, I see that the 4 is in the tens place and I'm going to underline it. Next, I box the digit to the right. So to the right is the number 7. So there is my number 7. Next thing I have to do is I'm going to look at that number and see some information about it. So to make this easy for some of you to understand, I'm going to list all of the digits that we have in our number system. Here's our digits. If I take our digits and I split them exactly in half, I have those that are 4 or less and those that are 5 or more. If it is 5 or more inside the box, he's going to push up the underlined number, not himself, the underlined number. If it is 4 or less, he's going to leave the underlined number alone. So if it's 5 or more, we up the score. If it's 4 or less, we let it rest. So since the number is a 7, it's 5 or more, it's going to bump my number 4 up to a 5. The numbers all then to the right become a 0, and all the numbers to the left stay the same. And I've just rounded 647 to the nearest tens. Next example. Once again, I'm going to rewrite my number to make it easier to work with because the number and the digits then are larger. And I'm going to round to the nearest 100. So since I'm rounding to the nearest 100, I find that the 6 is in the hundreds place, so I'm going to underline it because that is my first step. Then I box the number to the right. So I box that number to the right, and since it's 5 or more, I need to up the score. So I'm going to up this score to 7. Everything to the right becomes a 0, and everything to the left stays the same. I'm going to do another example. We're going to round this number to the nearest 10,000s. 10,000s, I find that the 5 is in the 10,000s place, so I underline it. The next step is to box the number to the right. The number to the right is a 4. 5 or more, up the score. 4 or less, let it rest. Well, this 4 is 4 or less, so it's going to let my 5 rest at a 5. Everything to the right becomes a 0. Everything to the left stays the same. So here's some examples that we can work on that some of you started in class. So first I want to round to the nearest million. So my millions place, the digit 8 is there. So I underlined it. Then I box the number to the right, which is the 5. 5 or more, up the score. 4 or less, let it rest. Well, since it's 5 or more, I up the score. That becomes a 9. Everything to the right becomes a 0. And everything to the left stays the same. And now I have my answer. I'll try another one. It says to round to the nearest 100,000. Well, in this case, the 100,000 is the last number. I underline it. Box to the right. There's a 7. So if I have 5 or more, I up the score. So I'm upping the score to 9. Everything else becomes a 0. There's nothing to the left, so I don't have to do anything with it. If I look at question 3, the nearest 100,000 still. 100,000 is that 2. I underline it. I box the number to the right, which is a 4. 5 or more, up the score. 4 or less, let it rest. Well, the 4 is 4 or less, so it lets the 2 rest. Everything to the right becomes a 0, and everything to the left stays the same. So that is how I round my whole numbers.